The Ashwood estate stood at the edge of a great forest, its stone walls old and strong, holding within them one of the most powerful wolf packs in the region. Alpha Draven Ashwood ruled this pack with a steady hand. Warriors twice his size lowered their eyes when he spoke. Enemies who once threatened his land had learned, through hard lessons, never to test his patience again. He was feared, respected, and admired. But in his own home, none of that mattered. His son, Kale, was 8 years old, and already 3 trainers had quit because of him. He was strong for his age, faster than most grown wolves, and filled with a restless fire that no one seemed able to put out. When he was upset, which was often, the ground nearly shook with his anger. Furniture had been broken, guards had been knocked down. Even Draven, who could silence a room with a single look, found himself standing helpless in front of his own child, unsure of what to do. The pack elders spoke quietly among themselves. Some said Kale's wolf spirit was too wild, too untamed, and that no future leader could act this way. Others whispered that perhaps the boy needed more discipline, harsher training, stronger punishment, but nothing worked. Discipline only made him angrier, punishment only made him retreat further into himself, snapping at anyone who came near. Draven watched his son from a distance one evening, sitting alone by the training yard, refusing to speak to anyone. The Alpha felt something twist painfully in his chest. He was a leader who could command hundreds, yet he could not reach the one person who mattered most to him. It was around this time that a new face arrived at the estate. Her name was Alara, a young Omega assigned to work in the household. She was quiet, careful, and unassuming, moving through the halls with a calm sort of grace that made her almost invisible among the busier staff. She did not seek attention. She simply did her work, folding linens, tending to the kitchens, arranging flowers in the front hall, and returned to her small room each night without complaint. She had heard about the Alpha's son, of course. Everyone had. The stories varied, depending on who told them. Some said he was a monster in the shape of a boy. Others said he was simply misunderstood. Alara did not know what to believe, and honestly, it was not her place to wonder. She kept her head down and avoided the West Wing, where Kale's training sessions were held, not out of fear, but simply because it was not part of her duties. That changed on an ordinary afternoon. Alara had been sent to deliver a basket of clean towels to the guest quarters near the training yard. As she walked along the stone path, she heard raised voices ahead, one belonging to a trainer, sharp and frustrated, and another, smaller but full of fury, growling back with surprising intensity. She paused at the edge of the yard and saw him. Kale stood in the center, fists clenched, his young face twisted with anger. The trainer, a broad-shouldered man named Corwin, was trying to back away, his hands raised, clearly out of ideas. Around them, 2 guards hovered nervously, unsure whether to step in or stay out of it. Kale's shoulders shook. His breathing was heavy, uneven, the kind of breathing that came right before something broke, either the boy's control or something else entirely. "Kale, that's enough," Corwin said, his voice cracking slightly. "Please, just calm down." But the words seemed to only make things worse. Kale's growl deepened, and dust kicked up around his feet as his energy surged. The guards took a step back. Even from a distance, Alara could feel the tension crackling in the air, like the moment before a storm. She did not know why she moved forward. Perhaps it was instinct, or perhaps it was simply that she could not stand by and watch a child suffer in front of a crowd, however feared he was. She set down her basket, quietly, and walked toward the yard. "Miss, you shouldn't be here," one guard whispered as she passed him. "It isn't safe." Alara did not answer. She kept walking, slow and steady, her steps calm despite the tension radiating from the boy ahead. When she was close enough, Grail's head snapped toward her, his eyes flashing with warning. He let out a low growl, a clear signal for her to stay back. Anyone else would have stopped. Anyone else would have turned and fled the way the trainers had before. Alara did not. She knelt down instead, lowering herself so she was almost at eye level with him, and spoke in a voice so quiet it barely carried across the yard. "You're not in trouble," she said simply. "I'm not here to make you do anything. I just want to sit with you for a moment, if that's all right." Kale blinked, clearly caught off guard. His growl faltered, uncertain now, as if he did not know how to respond to someone who wasn't afraid of him. "Go away," he muttered, though the fire in his voice had softened just slightly. "I will if you truly want me to," Ilara said gently, "but I don't think you want to be alone right now. I think you're tired. Not just your body, your heart too." Something in her words seemed to reach him. His clenched fists slowly loosened. His breathing, though still uneven, began to slow. The guards behind him exchanged confused glances, unsure of what they were witnessing. Ilara did not move closer. She simply stayed where she was, patient and still, waiting. After a long moment, Kale's shoulders dropped, and the wild energy that had surrounded him began to fade, like a candle slowly settling after a gust of wind passed. "I don't like being told what to do," he finally said, his voice quieter now, almost childlike. "I understand," Ilara replied, "but there's a difference between being told what to do and being asked with kindness. No one has to shout to be strong." Kale looked at her for a long moment, studying her face as if searching for some trick, some hidden agenda, but there was none. Just calm, steady patience, the kind he had never been offered before. Word of what happened spread through the estate quickly. By evening, even Alpha Draven had heard the story from 3 different sources, each version slightly exaggerated, but the core truth remaining the same. The Omega Maid had calmed his son when no one else could. Draven found Ilara in the kitchen later that night, quietly cleaning up after the evening meal. She startled slightly when she saw him standing in the doorway, unsure of what to say to the powerful Alpha who now stood before her. "I heard what happened today," Draven said, his voice measured but curious. "With Kale." "I only spoke to him, Alpha," Ilara said carefully. "I did nothing special." "You did something none of my trainers could do," Draven replied. "Something I have not been able to do myself." His voice held no anger, only a tired kind of honesty that surprised her. "Would you be willing to spend time with him? Not as a trainer, just as you did today." Ilara hesitated. It was not her place to question the Alpha's request, but she also understood the weight of what he was asking. Still, she thought of Kale's face in the training yard, the loneliness hidden behind his anger, and she nodded. "I will try, Alpha, but I cannot promise it will work every time." "That is more than anyone else has offered," Draven said quietly. And so began an unusual routine. Each afternoon, Ilara would set aside an hour of her duties to sit with Kale, sometimes in the garden, sometimes near the edge of the forest where he seemed most at peace. She never scolded him, never raised her voice, never tried to force him into obedience the way others had. Instead, she talked with him gently, listened when he wanted to speak, and stayed quiet when he simply needed silence. Slowly, the wild pup began to change. He still had his moments of temper, of course. Old habits did not vanish overnight, but they came less often, and when they did, Ilara's steady presence was often enough to settle him before things spiraled out of control. The guards noticed, the trainers noticed. Even the pack elders, who had once whispered doubts about Kale's future, began to watch with cautious hope. But not everyone was pleased. Some among the older pack members grumbled that an Omega, low in the pack's hierarchy, had no business shaping the future Alpha. They argued that Kale needed strength and discipline, not softness, and that Ilara's calm nature would only weaken him further. Rumors spread that she was overstepping her place, that she sought favor or influence she did not deserve. Ilara heard these whispers, of course. It was impossible not to, in a household where gossip traveled faster than any messenger. But she did not let it change her approach. She continued showing up each day, patient as ever, never seeking recognition, simply trying to help a child who needed someone steady in his life. Kale, too, noticed the tension surrounding her, and one evening, as they sat together near the forest's edge, he asked her about it directly. "They say bad things about you," he said, picking at the grass beside him. "Because of me." Ilara considered her words carefully before answering. People often fear what they don't understand. Some believe strength must be loud to be real. I believe differently, but that doesn't mean I need everyone to agree with me. "Does it bother you?" Kale asked, looking up at her with a curiosity that reminded her, briefly, of how young he still was beneath all his fire. "Sometimes," she admitted honestly, but I would rather help you than worry about what others think of me. Kale was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something he had never done with anyone else before. He leaned his head gently against her shoulder, a small, simple gesture of trust. Ilara said nothing, simply letting the moment settle between them, warm and quiet beneath the darkening sky. The true test came weeks later, when scouts brought urgent news to the estate. A rival pack, long resentful of Ashwood's strength, had gathered near the northern border, threatening to challenge their territory. Tensions rose quickly throughout the pack, warriors preparing for the possibility of conflict, elders debating strategy long into the night. Kale, now more aware of the pack's struggles than before, grew restless and anxious as the days passed. He wanted to help, to prove himself capable, but his emotions ran high, and everyone worried what might happen if his temper flared during such a critical time. A single mistake, a moment of reckless anger, could put lives at risk. On the night the rival pack's warriors approached the border, tensions peaked. Draven stood at the front lines with his most trusted fighters, while Kale, against everyone's wishes, had slipped away from the estate to watch from a nearby ridge, unable to sit quietly while his home was threatened. Ilara, sensing something was wrong when she could not find him in his usual places, followed his trail into the forest, her heart pounding with worry. She found him standing at the ridge's edge, his body trembling with barely restrained energy, his eyes fixed on the distant torches and shadows moving near the border. "Kale," she called softly, approaching carefully. He turned to her, his expression a mixture of fear and fury. "They're going to fight. My father could get hurt. I have to do something." "Running down there in anger will not help him," Ilara said gently, stepping closer. "It will only put you both in danger." "Then what am I supposed to do?" Kale's voice cracked, raw with helplessness. "Just watch?" Ilara knelt beside him, taking his trembling hands into hers, steady and warm, despite the cold night air. "You have grown so much these past weeks, Kale. You have learned that strength does not have to come from anger. Trust in what you've learned. Trust yourself to make the right choice, not the reckless one." For a long, tense moment, Kale struggled between the wild instinct urging him forward and the calm voice reminding him of everything Ilara had taught him. Slowly, painfully, he took a deep breath, allowing her words to settle over the storm building inside him. "Stay with me," he finally whispered. "Please." "I will," Ilara promised, sitting beside him on the ridge as the distant sounds of tension eventually gave way to voices of negotiation rather than battle. The rival pack, seeing Ashwood's strength and unity, ultimately chose to retreat rather than risk a costly conflict. By the time Draven returned to the estate, weary but unharmed, he found his son waiting calmly by the front gates, Ilara standing quietly beside him. The relief on the Alpha's face was unmistakable as he embraced his son tightly, grateful beyond words that the night had ended peacefully. Later, standing before the assembled pack, Draven spoke openly for the first time about what many had already begun to understand. "For years, I believed strength meant control through force," he said, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "I was wrong. True strength can also be found in patience, in kindness, in someone brave enough to remain calm when others expect fear." He turned to Ilara, who stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, uncertain of the attention now focused on her. "This Omega has done what none of us could. She has helped shape not just a calmer pup, but a stronger future Alpha." The pack, once doubtful, now watched with quiet respect, as Kale stepped forward, and for the first time in front of everyone, embraced Ilara with open gratitude. From that night forward, Ilara was no longer seen as simply a maid within the Ashwood estate. She became a trusted and valued presence, respected not for her rank, but for the quiet strength she had shown when it mattered most. And Kale, once feared as an uncontrollable pup, grew steadily into a young wolf, known not for his temper, but for his growing wisdom and calm resolve. A future Alpha, shaped gently, patiently, by someone who had never sought recognition, only to help.